Thank you. Chairman Powell, I know it's the policy of the Federal Reserve to not comment on fiscal policy, but fiscal policy does impact the Fed's economic projection, does it not?
Yes, it does. We make assumptions about fiscal policy, and then once it's enacted, we would put that into our models.
Okay, but your public models are a statement about current law rather than proposed policy. Is that largely correct?
Well, when we don't really publish a forecast as the Federal Reserve. Individual participants publish their forecasts in the Summary of Economic Projections, but that would include their personal assessments of likely fiscal actions.
Okay. So about these fiscal actions, Secretary Yellen, I said this in my opening statement, and I'll say this to both of you again. I am grateful as an American that you both are in the seats that you're in right now, because we're in a special circumstance here in the fall of this year. It was a foreseeable, slow-moving disaster, but here we are. But your credibility of your relative agencies and the credibility of you two individuals is of substance right now and very important to us as an American government. So, Secretary Yellen, you said in July, right before the debt limit was reinstated, the CBO said Treasury would probably run out of cash sometime in the first quarter of next year, or the fiscal year, most likely in October or November. Secretary Yellen, you began exercising Treasury's authority to take extraordinary measures to prevent a default back in August. Is that correct?
Yes. The debt limit, this suspension expired on August 1st, and we began using extraordinary measures to remain under the debt ceiling.
But those extraordinary measures are just a Band-Aid for a period of time, right?
Well, as I indicated, we expect them to be exhausted on October 18th.
Okay. And it would be a disaster if we did not.
It would be a catastrophe if Congress failed to raise the debt ceiling.
Okay. So here's the deal for Republicans. Democrats control the House and the Senate and the White House. And since January 20th, the approach of this Congress is that they do not need Republican votes to do anything. That's been the approach. And now they want the political cover in the midst of this massive amount of new spending to have Republicans raise the debt ceiling. That's really the request. So here's my question to you, Secretary Yellen. For the seat you sit in, do you care whether or not the debt limit is raised with Republican votes, or do you just care if it's raised?
I think it's important that this be done on a bipartisan basis. I think it should be bipartisan in recognition of the fact that both Republican administrations and Congresses and Democratic ones have run budget deficits for most of the post-war period, with only a few years serving as an exception. And that requires, on a regular basis, raising the debt ceiling. It is not about the need to do so, has nothing to do with future spending or tax plans that haven't been enacted.
So in the circumstance,
it's necessary to pay our bills.
I understand,
and
Secretary Yellen.
That's something that Republicans and Democrats need to share that responsibility.
Secretary Yellen, as I said to you on the phone last week, I've been a part of every single debt ceiling increase for the last decade, every fiscal consequence of Congress, and some of them have been very bad, but I've tried to make things better. I've been a part of the solution for the last decade. And the call that I received from you last week was the first outreach I've had from this administration to do something on a bipartisan basis. And you called me to raise the debt ceiling. Not with a plan, not for a fiscal plan, not for my buy-in, but simply for my vote. And that, to me, speaks volumes. Now, I'm grateful for the outreach from you, but it speaks to the larger issue for the administration. And I don't envy the position you're in. I don't. Because the bad strategy from this White House and the leadership of this House and the Senate is showing they don't want Republican votes. We did bipartisan bills last Congress, and in the midst of COVID, bipartisan bills, major bipartisan bills. We can work together in a responsible manner, but to ask for my vote the week before it comes up in the House is it's not in keeping with the realities of the situation. Well, we have the tools, we have the votes to get this thing done through Congress. It's just a question of who votes for it.
I would like to point out that in 2017, when the White House and both houses of Congress were controlled by Republicans and a reconciliation bill was in progress that led to the 2017 tax cuts, the debt ceiling was raised, and it was done in a bipartisan basis.